What I want to do is show you something that's fundamental. It's a graphic in the book. So over the next few weeks, you will see me post some of these graphics on LinkedIn. What we're doing is simplifying the strengths journey. I've had people have used strengths, but it's just too complicated for them to figure out on their own. The book is over 170 pages. And the process of growth has also been made too narrow and too complicated. All the current systems, their assumption is that if I give you more information, it's going to make you a better person. It's going to improve your growth. It's all cognitive learning. And yes, you may get a few skills out of it, but the way you change is your brain has to change. No brain change, no change in your world. And the way the brain changes is you have to give it success coordinates. This goes back to the research in the 1950s called psychocybernetics. The brain is a guidance system. You give it coordinates and you reinforce the desire for those coordinates, then your brain begins to filter in the information that reinforces it, and it begins to build the story of how you're going to get there. We are storytelling creatures, and we operate on journey stories. So if you've read The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell or watched any movie that uses his model, it's always the same story. There's a hero who feels like they're stuck, there's something more, and they're not happy with the status quo. Something disrupts that status quo, and they have to make a choice. It's a red pill, blue pill moment on going into an unknown, uncomfortable new territory of learning, of adventure, and or going back into comfort. That's it. And what we're following here in this ladder to virtue are the levels of growth that you go through. So the first level is just discovery. Oh, I took the assessment. Here's the results. Not sure what they all mean. Intuitively, it makes a little bit of sense to me, but that's the first level. Most people never get out of that level. They never get out of, I have X strength or whatever it is, and that's all they go with. And they identify with it, or they don't. But the next level is to understand exactly what does that mean. I was with somebody on Tuesday. He's got his top 5 strengths are in the thinking zone, and he's got intellection. So he's always looking at kind of the fundamental meaning. And when things don't line up, for example, strategic, he's been the COO for a billion-dollar company, and he's run into leaders who have the strength or the talent or the trait of strategic, but can't put strategy together to save their lives. Strategic as a strength, it doesn't mean that you're good at strategy. What it means is that the way you think is you cut through the clutter, go to the end in mind, you make quick gut level decisions about where to go and how to go. And at its best, it's a great navigator strength. It says, here's the way I think we should go. Doesn't mean it's right. And a strength or trait on its own doesn't do much for you unless it is disciplined. Or empathy. I tease about empathy because it's number 34 for me, but it doesn't mean caring. It can, but at its essence, what it really means is the instinct to be able to put myself in someone else's shoes and feel and see the world through what they're going through, what they're experiencing. I can't do that instinctively. Now, I can do it as a second language using my curiosity, strength of learner, and my relator. So that's the understanding level. What does it really mean? And here people get a lot of things wrong about it. This is where they start coming to the conclusion, I can't, that's not my role, or that's not my area of expertise, so I get a pass. And what Gallup says, it's not the mix of your strengths or the selection of your strengths that will determine if you can do something. It'll show you how you can do it. Now, you may come to the conclusion, which I have, that I'm not going to be an accountant. I don't want to be. I don't like it. But if that was something that I found an element in there, building deep relationships, helping people figure out tax strategy, whatever, I could easily see a path where I could be an effective accountant, playing to my strengths, doing things in the way I do it. I have to rely on others for detail work. Then the next thing, this is cognitive. So spark of aha, cognitive understanding. Now you're connecting what that strength is with how it feels in real life. There's an emotional component to all the strengths. And that emotional component is because you're releasing certain hormones like dopamine. This is fun. It's natural. It's intrinsic. That's what we call intrinsic engagement, is when you're doing something that you're wired to do and you experience the positive feedback from that. Or endorphins, when you're doing it to a level where you get so absorbed in it that you lose track of time or reach what we call a flow state. Or serotonin, when you're experiencing deep connection with others and feel that psychological safety that releases your willingness to take a risk in saying what you want to say, and you feel connected to the person. Or oxytocin, which is going even deeper into that vulnerability intimacy level. So when you begin to connect the way it feels to what it is, now you're starting to add to it. It's no different than if you're a musician or an athlete. I can remember the first time we started doing swimming lessons, and we were on the ground and we were practicing the stroke and had the little kickboard in front of us and doing that. Until you get in the water, you can't translate that to what it feels and looks like. I played tennis for a long time. There's a big difference between somebody who knows and analyzes and can show you the form and somebody who can do it in real life, in context, in real time. So that's that experience level. That's the level all of you should be focusing on now, is focusing on, oh, I see it in action. I know what that feels like. That's part of the bookend days practice at the end of the day, where you reflect, where were those highlight moments that I had? Where was the good feeling? Where did people feel like I was at my best? And then connect it to the trait or the strength. The next step is under pressure, that you start learning about the shadow side. You learn how to operate under pressure. You feel it, you see the shadow side, and what happens to you. You begin working on that so that you can perform under pressure. And so you get there, and then you get to the point where it's becomes second nature. That's mastery. And mastery is, you do it by design, but it's second nature. And now you can really become purposeful or have intent behind your strengths, where before they come and go, you don't necessarily know how or why. You have some observation on it, but now I can walk into a meeting and immediately see where the meeting's going or where it should go. I can walk on a job site and immediately know if their timeline is accurate or not. I can be with a group of people and my radar goes off that I can't trust this person because of my relator. I do that instinctively instead of second guessing it or pushing it down. I've added a level called virtue. Even at a masterful level, may not be serving a higher purpose or cultivate your character. And the story I give is the sales guy in Iran who was masterful with relator, with activator, with arranger, with significance and competition. This guy was a closer, high dollar, 7-figure income guy, selling training programs. He's an incredible individual. He was using his relator as a secret weapon to get people to trust him and then close the deal. So I said, David, you're masterful with relator, but it's all about you. I said, there's a higher level. If you look at relator at its best, relator is a genuine friend. And when you use relator to get what you want, that's not being a genuine friend. He contemplated that, and he came back a couple weeks later and said, Rex, you changed my life. So he began seeing and wanting to get to that higher level. As coaches and trainers, we can tap into a natural instinct in learning called the learning flywheel. And it begins with what we call unconscious incompetence. How many have heard of unconscious incompetence? You don't know what you don't know. Or we say you're blissfully ignorant. A teacher's job is to take you to the next level, which is conscious incompetence. Oh, now I know what I don't know, and I know how it gets in my way, or I know that it's key for my progressing. That generates a natural instinct to want to go up this ladder or go into the learning flywheel. Then you've got what we call conscious competence. So conscious competence is learning, that's that experience, feeling the shadow and performing under pressure. That's where you are in that level. And then unconscious competence is mastery. And to grow again, you need either some kind of experience or a mentor or somebody to expose you to what's next. This also follows an S curve. Okay. Any questions about this here? This is fundamental in our approach to helping people become that better version. And it all rotates around reinforcing that picture that they've created, that mini story of who they are at their best, the genius portrait, and rehearsing it by looking at the day performance. My performance today, like right now, we're all performing. You're either performing at your best or some level in between, and best is a relative term, but you're either present, engaged, involved, or you're not. That's something you can easily reflect on afterwards and say, so what was it about this time where I couldn't connect or I didn't connect? That's the rehearse, then the reflect side of it. And the last piece is the feedback side, using the trait worksheet to see how others see you at your best and see you in your kryptonite mode. This is fundamental. This is it. The paragraph and this ladder is the path to pulling out more and more of that potential that's been hidden in you.
Well, actually, I have a question. So looking at that ladder and how that works, do you feel that introspection is a big part of this process?
Huge part. And here's why. Like this morning, I read my paragraph and I've got a little ritual in the morning, gratitude plus why I'm grateful for those. I read my paragraph, then I look at my calendar. So reading the paragraph is reinforcing the coordinates in my brain on what I want to achieve today, which is the best version of that. Then rehearsing it, just like an athlete or a musician does, is looking at the opportunities in the day where I'm performing and how am I going to show up at that. So that opens what's called a narrative gap. I've started a story in the morning. I've asked my brain a question and the brain works on it, but I need closure. And so at the end of the day is the logical time to talk about, so how did I show up? Where were those peak moments? Where did my strengths get in my way? I do a little bit of journaling with it. I take some notes, but it's more about repeating and repetition and getting in the habit of doing that. And if you don't close the loop, you lose most of the learning value. It's like creating a sandcastle. I built this object through the day. If I don't close the loop, most of it will wash away. And that's just how the brain works. Experience is ephemeral. The memory of it and the residual of it, you try to capture what you can.